JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. November 7th, 2024, 8:57 a.m. on this fine Thursday. Talk really quick about the market. Some names I'm looking at go from there. S&P, what a monster rally. Markets rallied to all-time highs yesterday. Small caps up over 5%. S&P, NASDAQ up over 2.5%, and then the Dow was up 3%. Uh, just pretty remarkable. And that's in the face of yields rising, the US dollar getting stronger. Uh, but then on the flip side, the VIX fell, and the VIX is down here. Well, it was at 15 before, after being over 20 since the start of September. So pretty remarkable stuff. Now the question is, is the gains going to hold? Are we going to hit new highs, or is there going to be some consolidation? Uh, I think for now we're just maybe a little chop here. I'm watching 585 on the SPY. Today is Fed Day, so it's almost like the first time in recent memory that I can recall the Fed being almost like on the back burner. But it's going to be an important one today, especially with the 10-year continued to rise. You have home sales, which was going to be the potential next tailwind for markets, because as rates go down, the housing market is a big part of the economy, and it looks like it's going the other way, and that just does not bode well for the mortgage rates and that possible tailwind. But if Fed Chair Powell is able to kind of get that under control, and maybe you'll start to come down a little bit, maybe that'll be the next leg for markets. But 585 on the SPY, and I always use the analogy or the acronym or whatever you want to call it, not the acronym, but the saying new highs typically beget new highs. So once we break through all those crazy resistance areas, it's a lot. It's like the airplane breaking through the clouds, right? The hardest part of a flight is through the clouds, and then once you get through those clouds, it's smooth sailing. So I'm not saying it's gonna be smooth sailing here, but probably the path of least resistance more to the upside than it is downside. But 585 on the SPY, we hit that yesterday before bouncing. I'll be watching that. And then the small caps, just remarkable. Sitting here like a broken record for the last 6 months, talking about wanting that breakout in small caps over 225, and then within one day, we not only break 225, we're up near 240. So that's probably the key area. We'll see if we can get over 240. Uh, but you look at all the charts, and the RSI is over 70, and a lot just on the indexes alone. That typically doesn't happen too much, and typically, when you have overbought position conditions, typically there's some kind of consolidation. So we'll have to see how today plays out. The Fed Chair Powell is probably going to be a little volatility at 2 o'clock, and then more volatility as press conference goes on. 0.25% rate cut. It's pretty much 100% guarantee, and then there's one more Fed meeting at the end of the year. So that's overall markets. Also, take a look at the yields. I don't know if I posted a chart in the chat room. I probably didn't. But just remarkable to see, after a jumbo rate cut, you would think rates would be continued to decline. Instead, they're well back over the levels from the summer. So hopefully that trend's changed at some time. So that's that. All right, so individual names. So DELL, another nice move to the upside yesterday. Almost tested 140 after the open. Then pretty much then reverse course and then chopped around for the rest of the day. I was talking about yesterday on the rant in the afternoon. My November 145s for next week, they look great at the open. And then once we got the pullback and I locked some more in for a little close to 300%, I still held on a few into next week just because I want to be able to hold those or lock those in and add some higher strikes. But then I looked at the premiums, and despite stock being up 4%, the calls were up like 16%. And you put in perspective, normally you would think if stock was up 4%, the calls for next week, especially ones that are closer to money, would really start gaining some, or at least adding premium, and that premium would hold, and that wasn't the case. So kind of sat on my hands adding some more strikes. I'll wait for today. Probably wait for the 140 handle. So if that goes, maybe that will set the stage for a bigger move. I'll lock the last of November's in, and I'll get some more strikes. But really like to set up in DELL, and of course, I've talked about the super micro situation, and then Qualcomm after the close yesterday, which was kind of disappointing earnings in regards a slight miss, but then they announced this monster buyback, and so maybe that helps push the rest of the semis up today. Not only that, so another name I'm looking at, and I remember talking about AMD, and AMD wasn't a name I've traded quite often at all over the years. And back in the summer, it looked like, it was like I called it the stepchild or the stepson of NVIDIA. I don't even know what you've forgotten, stepchild. And then it went from 120 to 160, and I didn't hold for the entire games, but made some nice coin on the calls. I'm not saying the same setup here as with MU, and I don't know why I don't have the MU chart. Where are you, MU? Here we are. I'm not saying the same thing as setting up here with MU, but it does look like there's an opportunity here. And it was up 6% yesterday, but you start looking at the longer term chart, and it looks like it wants to get to 120. A tight trading range since October, and I don't know if you call this a W pattern, but it hit the highs in October, then sold off, hit the highs again in middle October, sold off again into the late October, and then nice little rally here. And if it breaks, I think it's like 116 or so, I think it's off to the races. So don't be surprised. The 120 strikes into next week look interesting, or the 122s. I forget what strike they are. Don't be surprised if I add some calls just to play for a little overshoot, and almost like. I mean, the video's been on a tear, so are people going to start looking for some other names? And AMD, of course, would be one of them, but they just had earnings. Micron won't report earnings till December, so could be a little opportunity there to catch some mojo on some mojo and FOMO on Micron. So it's not a name I've traded much before in the past, but certainly looks interesting here. I mean, it was up near 160 back in June. Doesn't mean that's where it heads, but just to me, it means there's some opportunity. All right, so that's MU. Uh, so really quick, I'll talk about Clear Secure. I would say really quick, but here it is. It's like deja vu all over again. Clear Secure reported earnings in the morning, a nice beat and raise. So they beat on both ends. They beat on revenue and EPS, and then they raised guidance. And then sure enough, what happens this morning is shorts are piling in, pressuring the stock. It almost reminds me of some of these other names that you have this huge cohort of short people who are short, and then they know how to pressure the stock in the pre-market because they know retail's not really there, so they're able to play some shenanigans. That's just my opinion. I mean, the stock was up over 100% coming into today, year to date, so that could be some of it. People are expecting a bigger beat. I don't know. I was saying it for the last couple of days. I was pretty much guaranteeing that it was going to be a beat and a raise. It's just how the market reacts, and it's doing what it typically had done outside of last quarter, where they pressure it. If it holds 32 or so, and I don't see how it trades, but it is. It is what it is. I mean, I can't. The market's going to trade where the stock's going to trade where the market puts it. So that's where it is now. I think it shouldn't be trading down today, but that's you take what you take, get what you get, and I might look to play some bounce spec calls, probably November's, and then I'll just continue to hold my January's because I think this will resume its uptrend in the coming weeks. That's Clear Secure. Just disappointing. It's frustrating. Kind of ruins the morning. So that's that. So that's Clear Secure. And you start looking at levels. I mean, it was 31 back at the start of October, so it's not really like it's giving back the entire gains for this year. It's just disappointing. All right, so that's Clear Secure. Lemonade. What to say about Lemonade? Monster move yesterday. Some would call it like a short squeeze, right? Because it has that 30+% short interest. Locked most of my November strikes in for a little over 70%, and then 100% near the end of the day. Of course, in hindsight, I probably should have locked them all, but I still think this is headed higher. But sure enough, what happens? You have a boutique firm come out and downgrading the stock after the rally. The analyst has a perform rating, and the stock is up over 100% probably since they initiated a rating, and now they're downgrading it to underperform, and they raised their price target at 21. I still think this has a little longer time for upside, so I'll continue to hold the strikes. We'll see how it opens, right? So, I mean, it was at 26 at the open yesterday. Here it is at 28.26 in the pre-market. So it's down a buck from its close yesterday, but I still think there's opportunity here. And not only that, you look at the backdrop of regulatory situation, like with a new, with the election kind of putting the framework of possibly less regulation in some of these sectors and industries. And that's why you saw some of the financials going bonkers yesterday, Goldman Sachs and what have you, having their best day in years. Similar, I think, in insurance. So this could be some of the reason why it moved. It was up 16% plus yesterday on no catalyst, really. So if you can reverse this morning downgrade, again, it's like a boutique firm. I don't know why it's a lot of the market's putting much into it, but I guess that's what happens. I think 30 plus. So I'll look to lock the rest of my November's in, and then I'll probably just hold my December strikes, which I added yesterday. So, and then 25 is that big handle. Broke 25. You saw it once it gapped over that yesterday. It was off to the races. So that's Lemonade, Micron, TravelZoo. Of course, small caps up 5.5 yesterday. 5.5%. TravelZoo's red. Not much to add on that one. Of course, I still love that one. Just on my November strikes, the expiration's coming closer. So as that comes closer, premiums start to come out. Hopefully, you can get its footing back over 18 would be nice. I mean, it was 1832 at the open, hit 1840, and then just traded down over $1. Some of this, so they did an acquisition, and some of it there's a seller who's selling shares. I think, and that's some of the reason why the company is being very aggressive on their buyback. So I don't know, when you have a company that doesn't do much, when you have a stock that trades 160,000 shares, and someone's selling 20 or 30,000 shares a clip, that could be some of the pressure. All right, so that's, but I still love it. I think it goes over 20 in the coming weeks, so on and so forth. Peloton struggling with $8. Maybe today's the day it can finally, uh, you know, breach that and hold, and then look to get over that 9 handle. But a good sign considering its earnings, that huge move. You look at the chart, it's consolidating that move and heading higher. And this is in the face too of some downgrades it's had, or at least negative analysts or not rosy comments from analysts, which I think bodes well. All right, two other names. So Gilead, Gilead had, I think, had 75 strikes and then 80 strikes and then 85 strikes a couple months ago on play on some of these mega cap bio names. And interesting enough, the biotech sector, IBB, was up like 1% yesterday. I thought it would be up much more. But here's Gilead, had some great earnings this morning. Was it this morning? Yesterday afternoon. Yesterday afternoon. Getting some upgrades, a lot, $3-4 price target upgrades from analysts, but some in the hundreds. I think this, you take a look at its move, and then you go back years. I think it's 2014 was the last time it was trading in the mid to high 90s. Just a huge revenue story. It was one of those names that was not executing well, so the stock kind of floundered around. But if it starts breaking all-time highs, I think it trades into the hundreds. So don't be surprised if I look for I wouldn't call it bounce because it's at 93.40 here in the pre-market, close at 91.69. But maybe some spec calls depending on what the premiums look like at the open for a move over 95, and then possibly some later dated strikes for that eventual move into the triple digits. And then last but not least, SE reports earnings. I think it's Monday or Tuesday of next week. China stocks were up overnight, so some of the China ADRs are actually in the green this morning, which wasn't the case yesterday despite the massive market rally. Still eyeing some strikes. I think this trades into the hundreds in the coming weeks. It's traded in the hundreds just a couple weeks ago. I think it trades over 110 or so. The only issue, Melly Cabra reported earnings yesterday, just getting demolished. I didn't even see where it is right now. I didn't even get a chance to really look at their earnings. It's bounced a little bit, but it closed at $2,100. It tested, I think it was 1,700 yesterday, right after the release. Went all the way down to 1,800 here in the pre-market. Now it's at 1945. So, they're pretty much the Amazon of South America. So and SE's, I wouldn't call it the Amazon of Southeast Asia, but they do have some business also in South America. I don't know if that's going to have any impact on SE, but something I'll be watching. But that's it, folks. Let's have a great day. We got 21 minutes to the open. I'll be back rocking.